Are ICOs, IEOs even worth it? There are several platforms doing the same thing. What are your thoughts on this? Good question. I do not think ICOs or IEOs are worth it. It depends on what platform or exchange you're on. But to be honest, I would not touch any IEO that's not on Binance. I mean, the only IEOs that have really been doing well have been on Binance. But even those have been hard to get into. But only the good projects like Matic Network, Elrond, and others. But I would always do your research. That's why we have an IEOs section in tokenmetrics.com. So you want to find a great IEO that's happening on a great exchange. That's a marriage made in heaven. So to keep things simple, avoid the crappy exchanges. If the exchange is known for having lots of fake volume manipulation, don't touch that exchange. I know Gate has been having lots of IEOs that pump a lot, but I mean, I would question basically the projects suck. The projects they're IEOing suck. So it makes me really question, because here, let me kind of peel the curtain and tell you how IEOs work. So when projects raise funds for an IEO, most of that money, if not all of it, is going to the exchange to do market making. So it's really fundraising for market making. It's not really, most projects don't even touch that money. The money is just a GoFundMe for market making, meaning that as soon as the exchange has that money, they're going to dump all of it into pumping the price, which is really not regulated. So that's why in the US you don't see any IEOs in the US, because the SEC would close that in a heartbeat. So definitely be careful. Understand that you could be left holding a bag with IEOs. IEOs are dangerous, especially on a crappy exchange. So my advice would, or rather my opinion, because this is not financial advice, my opinion would be, I personally have never done an IEO. That's mainly being because the allocations are very small, not even worth my time looking into just an IEO just to put in $200. I mean, to do what, a 3x or possibly lose the money, because I'm an angel investor and I invest, usually when I invest, I like to invest lots of money. But let's say you're a college student, okay? If you have less, or rather, if you're starting out with a small amount of money in crypto, IEOs are a great opportunity to possibly multiply your money, but you have to still do research. So filter out all the bad exchanges, don't touch those, because they're pump and dumps. And if you are going to do an IEO, let's say despite all that, you still do an IEO, I would sell on the first day, probably the first 1 or 2 hours, because if you go back and look at the data, historically speaking, almost every IEO has been pumped the first few hours. Perfect example is Cody. Cody IEO on what? It was KuCoin, I believe. Yeah, Cody IEO on KuCoin did like a 20x the first 1 hour. Then it tanked. And now I think it's an ICO price or IEO price or even below that, because they took all that money, put it into market making, pumped the hell out of it. Once the money is gone, it's like pulling the rug out of the carpet and boom, wrecked. So, I mean, if you're playing the IEO game, it's like flipping hot pancakes. You flip it and keep on moving. I mean, you don't want to be left holding a bag, or rather it's like musical chairs. You don't want to be left when the music stops with no chair to sit on. You just fall on your butt. I mean, and that's a bad look. That is a bad look. So definitely be careful. For us, our team, we only look at IEOs on the top exchanges. So our top exchanges, in our opinion, Binance, Huobi, KuCoin, CoinList is on there, and OKX. So basically exchanges with lots of volume. Now, just because we name those does not mean that they're not questionable with their tactics for IEOs. I mean, IEO is a short-term game. I don't think anybody should be holding an IEO for longer than 1 day. Now, when I say longer than 1 day, I mean your initial investment. So for example, let's say Cody does a 20x. sell your initial at the minimum, if not more. And then whatever left is on there is profit. Maybe leave some profit for the long term, but you definitely want to make sure you take out your initial investment ASAP. As soon as the first second is trading, you want to sell your initial. I mean, you don't want to risk any L's, no L's. I mean, you should not be taking any L's on an IEO, because as soon as it starts trading, you there putting in the first sell order, because as mentioned, projects raise funds. Those funds go straight to exchanges. The exchanges take that money, market making, i.e. manipulate the price, allegedly. Once they do that, you're there first in line selling. You should be selling within the hour, at least your initial investment. I mean, so if you cannot do that, probably don't even participate in the IEO. Otherwise, you're likely to lose money, because yes, there've been pump and dumps. That's why the hype has really died down. But more importantly, there haven't really been any good IEOs coming out. I mean, maybe that's because we stopped putting our IEOs in our old spreadsheet, because all the ones we had on there are the ones the exchanges picked, because our team thinks people on those exchanges that were looking at our list to find out which IEOs to put in. But anyway, I mean, that's my take on that. I think very good question. I was rambling a lot, but hopefully that was helpful.